Hey guys, Frat Guide to Card Games here, and today we're going to teach you how to out non-destroyable cards. For this particular instance, we're going to be using Thunder Dragon Colossus as an example because it's the most meta relevant as I'm creating this video. So, Colossus is a mistake on legs. You play it and your opponent can't search. Most decks rely on searching, so it's important to out this card. And there are ways to out this card even if it says it can't be destroyed. The exact wording of the text is: if this card will be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish one Thunder Monster from your graveyard instead. The way Thunder Dragons function, there's usually a lot of Thunder Dragons in the graveyard. So trying to just keep destroying it isn't usually a good option. And if you do want to be able to push through a Thunder Dragon Colossus, you want to have another way to destroy it. So let's begin with what doesn't work. And here we've got your Dark Holes and any other card effect that destroys. Or battle, for that matter. Like, you get a 3500 monster, you try and beat over it, you just banish a Thunder monster, and it gets an effect normally, like they banish Dragon Roar, they just get another monster. So you don't want to destroy it. So you can't activate Dark Hole, and I'm like, oh, I use my Colossus effect, save it. So Dark Hole doesn't work. And another card that doesn't work, which is a good one to think of, because even though you can banish this card, but you can't use Bottomless Trap Hole on this. The reason you can't use Bottomless on Colossus when it's summoned is like, oh, it banishes, doesn't destroy. The exact wording on Bottomless is, when your opponent summons a monster with 1500 or more attack, destroy that monster. And if you do, banish it instead of sending it to the graveyard. So this actually destroys, then banishes. So Bottomless actually does not work on Colossus, and that's just important to note. So now that we've talked about what doesn't work, let's talk about what does work. And to begin, let's talk about making sure the Colossus doesn't even get on the field. Some great cards for this are Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, and there can only be one. The first one is what you would use going second, Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. If you go into game 2 and you won the first game, you know you're going to be going second, Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries is a good card to side in. Because once your opponent has more monsters than you, and if they're going first, they're going to start summoning more monsters. So they pop their first Thunder Dragon on the field. They control a monster now. And you're like, okay, chain to the summon, I discard Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries and call Thunder Dragon Colossus. They now have to banish all copies of that card from their extra deck, so they just can't have Colossus anymore. This is probably one of the best outs to Colossus because they don't even get to summon it. It also completely destroys their playstyle. And timing is important on this, because if you can get them right before they're about to summon Colossus, like once they make some summoner the Link monster, then they have nothing else they can do, and you're just like, bye, you can't summon Colossus anymore. And that's a great out. Now, if you go into game 3 or you know you're going first, there can only be one. It's kind of like the opposite of Rivalry of Warlords, because Thunder Dragons can play Rivalry of Warlords because that only limits them to one type. Well, there can only be one is the opposite. You flip it over, they can only have one of each type. So if your deck can play this, it's really good. Like, say, Sky Strikers can play this, and I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but there can only be one. Each player can only control one monster of each type. If a player controls 2 or more monsters of that same type, they must send some to the graveyard so they control no more than one monster of that type. Now, this will leave them with one Colossus, or maybe even less, but most Thunder Dragon players won't have more than one Thunder. Won't have more than one type on the field. And if they leave you with one Colossus, you can out that pretty easily. So another great way to out Colossus, and this is what allows you to destroy it, is effect negation. So effect veiler is probably the most basic form of this. You could also use infinite impermanence which is better because it's not restricted to your opponent's turn, but I don't have an infinite impermanence, which even effect veiler do the same thing, except infinite impermanence can do it on either player's turn. You discard this to the graveyard during your opponent's main phase 1. This card's effects are now negated. So if you negate the monster's effects, then you can destroy it in a normal way. Like, you can just, well, you can't use Dark Hole on your opponent's turn. What's a card you can use? I don't know, some quick effect destroy, like, I can't think of one. Like, say you're playing a mirror match, you have Thunder Dragon Titan, you can blow up Colossus if you effect veiler their Colossus. A better one, if you're playing an Altergeist deck, Altergeist Conqueree, you summon this, it negates a monster's effects on the field, and you can just blow up their Colossus after that. So yeah, that's 2 effect negation ways to summon it, and that's the second way to destroy Colossus. Third way, Banishment. I'm using ABC Dragon Buster for example, because it's actually rather prompt that it busts dragons. But you can use any form of banishment. There's like a tribute to the Doomed for banishment. I can't remember what it's called. It's in Duel Links. But basically, you summon Buster and you discard a card, banish Colossus. They can't stop it. You can just banish Colossus all the diddly dang day long. And apart from that, there's other ways to banish things. Farfa banishes until the end of the turn if you're playing Burning Abyss. And there's a lot of in-archetype ways to banish certain cards. So that's pretty great. Now, granted, Thunder Dragons can get it back after you banish it, but they have to have the fusion from their deck. And they don't always have that. They usually only play like 1 or 2 of that. So there's that. And then there's just really fancy targeting removal, because Thunder Dragon Colossus can definitely be targeted. And if you can figure out a way to target the card and then either take it or just get rid of it in general, it's a good way to remove it. So some great things for this. Within the Altergeist deck, Meloseek sends it to the graveyard. It doesn't destroy, so Quietus bounces it back to the hand or bounces it back to the extra deck. Considering they can summon it really easy, these aren't great options. Unicorn is similar for a more generic option, because Unicorn, you discard a card and it spins it back to the extra deck. Probably an even better out to it is Thousand Eyes Restrict if you're running Instant Fusion. And you can just summon this guy, target the Colossus, and then steal it. And then you can't attack with it because it's probably an Instant Fusion target. Unless you're making it in a Relinquish deck, which power to you if you're actually Fusion summoning this. But anyway, these are all targeting forms of removal which you can use. And anything that targets but doesn't destroy is viable to get rid of Colossus. Another way, games 2 and 3, Kaijus, Mirror Match, Super Poly. If you're playing Cyber Dragons, Mega Fleet Dragon, what all these have in common, you drop a Kaiju on this, it tributes it, goes to the graveyard. If it's in the extra monster zone and you have a Cyber Dragon, you can summon Chimera Tech and fuse with it. All sorts of ways. Super Poly, you make it with a Thunder monster, you can make Titan out of it. This is only good in the Mirror Match because it fusion summons and you need a target in your extra deck to fusion summon with it. But these are all out. These are also all outs to Colossus. Yeah. Now the last one, and definitely the best one, is your non-targeting, non-destruction removal. And this isn't just for Colossus. This is for any non-targetable, non-destroyable monster. So a kind of a sacky one is Storming Mirror Force. There's a Paleo player at my locals. He plays this card against me because, you know, you got this big monster and you want to attack with it. But he's like, nope, Storming Mirror Force, shuffle your entire field back into the hand or the extra deck. And yeah, that's just a great out. But probably the most generic out and probably the best one for this particular card, Borreload Dragon. You know why? Borreload Dragon, you summon it, you attack, and the monster it attacks, and it's not targeting, it's just an attack. You can steal it, and it goes to the end phase of the next turn. Now the best thing about this combo is if you have Colossus, your opponent can't search. And that's just kind of bonkers. I've had that happen to me a few times. So you got to make sure your Colossus is un-Borreload proof, or make sure your opponent doesn't summon a Borreload. But if you're trying to out Thunder Dragons, Borreload is a great option if your deck can pull it off. So yeah, those are the ways to out Colossus and a lot of other troublesome monsters. Now, a lot of these do target, most of them do in fact, but the fusion summoning, tribute summoning, Kaijus don't do it, Borreload doesn't target, and Dark Hole doesn't target. Bottomless Trap Hole actually doesn't target either, and that's for more targeting monsters, but this is mainly for destruction monsters. So yeah, that's how you out non-destroyable monsters. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I'll see y'all next time.